Hey everybody, Lucas B here. Welcome back to another episode of ScreenFlow Live. Today we are doing FAQs on ScreenFlow, frequently asked questions, things that we get on social media, that we come from support, things that I even get asked here internally because I do a lot of ScreenFlowing. So questions that people have about ScreenFlow. So as always, if you have a question, put it into the comments, whether you're on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, wherever it is. Put it in there. I will answer as many questions as I can. And today is all about frequently asked questions in ScreenFlow. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. Before we get started, I just want to go over a couple housekeeping things. If you want to be notified by email when we go live, you can sign up at the link that should be on your screen really soon here. It's www.telestream.net/ScreenFlowLive. I really butchered that. Telestream.net/ScreenFlowLive. And of course, you can follow us on all these social media outlets. Facebook is Facebook.com/ScreenFlow. Twitter is @ScreenFlow, and we are on YouTube as ScreenFlow Tube. If you just search YouTube for ScreenFlow Tube, you'll find us there. We do host all of these on YouTube as VODs, video on demand, so you can watch them at a different time. I am trying to set up comments here for Facebook and YouTube, and we should be able to get that all set up. And looks like we're good on YouTube. I'm having trouble bringing up Facebook, but I do see something from Dara Yem saying, I never knew there's a Nevada City in California. Now you know. Yep, that's where we live. It's a beautiful town up in the mountains. Highly recommend checking it out if you've never been here. So, ScreenFlow, frequently asked questions. I would say one of the number one questions that I get asked personally is, what kind of gear do I use to make the videos that I make? What kind of cameras do I use? What kind of microphones do I use? And I want to show you that. Here is one of the number one microphones that I use. Boom. The Blue, that's the company name, Blue Yeti USB microphone. So this is a very simple condenser mic, it's called. It's for having, really works well in a closed environment with not a lot of ambient noise because it has a very sensitive microphone. And for those of you who have one, if you've been talking into this, if you've been talking into the top like most microphones you see, that's not where the diaphragm is. You want to be talking directly into this part right here. That's how you should be using this microphone. The reason why I like this microphone, has very good sound quality, super easy to use. It has a USB connection into your computer. You don't need any sort of extra materials to make this work. You just plug it directly into the USB port on your computer, and it is recognized as a USB microphone by ScreenFlow. I actually don't have a cable for it right here on the desk, so I can't show you how easy it is to use, but it's just, you just open it up and it's seen as an audio device. This is not the only microphone I use. I also use a Audio-Technica microphone that I've been using a lot recently, just because it's been more accessible to me. But I would say that if you're in the market for a microphone, these are relatively cheap as well. If I go here onto the internet and type in Blue Yeti USB microphone, I think they're around $100. $89, $120, depending on the exact microphone that you get. But it should be, if we just go to Amazon, this is one that I've used for hundreds of videos, the silver one here. It's $90. You can get it, I guess, in different colors as well. I just use the silver one because I don't really care how it looks. I like to keep it off screen a little bit. But for $90, you get a USB microphone, condenser microphone, has very good sound quality, and a majority of the videos that, if you've ever seen me on a VOD on our website, I'm using that microphone. When we do live stuff like this, we use this headset microphone. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's called like the Audio Traveler or something like that. Countryman, not Traveler, the Countryman. Let's see if we can find it on here. Countryman microphone. Countryman mic. So yeah, it's one of these ones. You can come into Amazon and search them there. They have a whole bunch of them. I don't personally like using these kind of microphones in recorded videos because it's just like an extra something for someone to focus on. But in live circumstances, it's okay to have this. But in general, this is the kind of microphone I'm using. Now, when it comes to cameras, I'm not sure if the equipment that we use is really applicable to most people, because right now I think we're using like a $5,000 cinema camera. That's just because us here at Telestream, we have relationships with camera producers and they send us stuff like that. But I'm not going to recommend you go out and buy a Blackmagic Ursa camera because they're super, super expensive. If you are going to use a camera and you don't want to spend a lot of money, the most popular, very, very good is the Logitech C920. Logitech C920 Pro. You can get these for like $60, $50. They're super easy to use. Once again, they're just USB. You plug it in, you get HD 1080p camera, and it's very basic and very simple. Of course, you can get something more expensive if you want to move up in the world. You can get a HD camcorder. With that, you'll need to get a capture card to pull that in, which gets even more tricky. Not necessarily the best way to go about things, but if you want better quality, you can do that. But if you're looking for just basics, what should you use? What have we used in the past? Blue Yeti USB microphone and this Logitech camera, and you're going to be just fine. I wouldn't necessarily recommend anything else. Jean-Francois Bisset says, you can call me JF, so I will from here on. Hello, JF. How you doing? Let me just double check some comments here. For some reason, my Facebook feed of this live video is not coming through. It's not working on Facebook, unfortunately, so definitely come on over to YouTube because that's where you're going to be able to see things today. And please enter in any questions you might have. We're looking to do half an hour show today, maybe 25 minutes, something like that. Another comment that we get often, and we've addressed this in the past, but I'm going to go over it again, is what are the best export settings when using ScreenFlow? And I got a list of questions from Abdul, who you guys know. He was going to be on the show today, but he got called into a meeting that he absolutely had to be at. But his reaction to that question was, whoa, that is a can of worms. There are so many different answers to what is the best export setting for ScreenFlow. I'm going to attempt to give you a basic understanding of why that is such a huge question. So, of course, you can't export when there's nothing in there, so I'm going to go to my global library, just pull in a piece of media so we can go up and see our export settings. New in ScreenFlow 7 is a whole new way of interacting with your exports. We now have automatic and manual. This automatic section is completely new. If you want to, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. If you want to focus on really getting technical with your export settings, go ahead and switch over to manual. We'll get that in a second. But if you want something easy, fast, and good, just keep your type, your export type. By the way, this is the export menu. In case you missed that, you just come on over here to File, Export, and then this is what you're going to see, Automatic. And we've put in fastest, normal, and slowest. So generally, the first thing I want to talk about is resolution. I would not change this from 1920 by 1080 if you're hosting this video anywhere run-of-the-mill. YouTube, Facebook. If you're exporting a video for use on the internet, 1920 by 1080 is going to be a really big size. Some of the reasons why I use some of these smaller formats is if I just want to export to see a certain area and I want it to export as quick as possible, I'll do 25% of the original video just so I can have a quicker export, so I can be like, oh, does this flow as a final video? Yes. But if I'm ever going to be hosting this video anywhere, I'm absolutely going to be doing 1920 by 1080. Letterboxing content only comes into play if the content that you're exporting is not a standard 10 by 9 video size. For example, if you are exporting a square, but you want it to fit into the YouTube area, you can letterbox your content. And what that's going to do is it's going to put black bars on the side so that your video fits in that 10 by 9 video frame, but only shows the square, which is your content. I know a lot of people like to host square videos on Facebook. And if you do want to do that, you just come down and do a custom size and change it to 1080 by 1080, and you're going to have a square video that comes out. But I don't actually want to do that. I like to have 1920 by 1080. Okay. So when it comes to encoding quality, you have 3 options, and it's based on how fast you want this video to encode. So if you're in a pinch and you want it to export as fast as humanly possible, choose fastest. It's going to use your hardware to accelerate this video encoding 6,000 kilobits per second, and you're going to get a good quality video exported as fast as possible. If you have all the time in the world and you want the best quality possible, drop it all the way down to slowest. What that's going to do is that it's going to essentially export your video. It's going to encode your video multiple times. It's going to go through and render out the video, and it's going to go through and render it again to make sure it looks even better, and it's going to export it out. You're going to get a bigger file size, but you're going to have a much higher quality video. It's going to come out a lot slower. If you're looking for something in between, go ahead and click normal. That's just normal H.264 video encoding, and it's going to come out at a normal speed. If you want to get really specific, you can customize your own export settings. Boost that data rate, change your codec. Single pass, that's for that's normal. Multi-pass is the slowest, and hardware accelerated would be that fastest. And then you can set your keyframes if you want to do that, your audio, whatever you want to do. So the best for what you're doing depends on where you're going, what kind of video it is, and how you're going to be hosting that video. If you're going to YouTube and you want it to be good quality, come over to automatic and choose slowest. That's what I would assume most people are doing, and that's what I'm going to recommend doing. Automatic, slowest, 1920 by 1080. If you have a lot of movement in your video, a lot of animations that you've built in, definitely use that motion blur. Light, heavy, and medium is not something I can express to you with words. You're going to have to just export it different times and see the difference between the different motion blur. Light is going to be a little bit of blur, and heavy is going to be a lot of blur. So if you have a lot of movement, definitely use that motion blur. And that is my feelings on export settings. We get a lot of people asking, how do I export my video in the best way? With ScreenFlow 7, we built in a lot of features in the export area to make it better by default. But if you want to go in and customize it a little bit more, go ahead and do those things. Once again, I'm going to check on comments here. Wow, okay, there's some people talking to us. Hang on. All right, Bob has a good question. I'll answer that in a second. Yeah, actually, JF, I think I do have something a little bit deeper to talk about there, because Bob said how to export just a couple of clips off the work area, and that gets really tricky when, check this out. Let's not save that. Let's open up a recent ScreenFlow video. I know that I have one with, let's see, Vantage Social, Max Elastic Domain. This was a really big video that I did. Has multiple clips, multiple nested clips, and all kinds of things. Now, let's take this random spot in particular. Now, I have here, let's say I just want to export the video that's behind here and not the animation that's running on top of it. Now, if I did what you said, JF, and I said I let it run for a second, and then O, and created just this little clip here, I would be exporting everything that you see here, including that animation. But imagine I don't want to export that animation. How am I going to export just this video? Now, there isn't necessarily a feature built into ScreenFlow that's going to allow you to do that. But what I would recommend doing, of course, the first thing I would do is save my project. Save. Now I'm going to come down and find what I'm looking for. Go here, and I can export that. Let's see what happens when I trim and trim. Now grab this section here, which is only that video in the background, Command C, and then I'm going to go all the way to the end of the project. All right, I'm going to slow down here because I want to be very clear what I'm doing. Let's back this all the way up. So we are here. We want just the video in the background. We don't want this animation on top. But we only want it from this point to this point. So JF, you were correct in saying add an in and out point, and then you can come up and say export selected range. If you want everything that's in the frame between those in and out points, that's the best way to do it. File, export selected range, after adding I, O, those are the keyboard shortcuts, the in and out points. The problem that arises is that if you don't want certain aspects of what you see on the screen at that moment, what you're going to want to do is isolate just that background frame. And you have a couple different ways of doing this. One is trimming the piece of media that you want to export. So I'll do T here and T here, and then Command C, and that's going to copy that trimmed piece of media. And now I can Command Z twice to get rid of those trims, come all the way to the end of my project, and Command V. And that's going to get rid of the trims that I made, but keep that trimmed piece of media. And now I have just that moment with no overlaying pieces. And now I can I/O that in an out point, export selected range. Hopefully that wasn't too complicated. The basis here is that, where was I exactly? It doesn't really matter. It's just an animation on top. The main idea here is that I'm cutting out a piece of media, moving it to the end, and highlighting just that section to export without actually changing what's going on in my project by undoing the trims that I made after I've copied the trimmed piece of media. And just talking about that, I know it sounds convoluted and a little bit tricky, but if you try that in your projects, it's fine. Another way to do it, though, would be if we open up these pieces of media, these layers, we get this option where we can make something invisible. So if we go to this piece of media here, which is that little animation that I have, the little piggy bank and 3 words coming on and then the lines going through them, what I can do is I can just turn it off. I can click that little eye there. If I zoom in, maybe you can see it a little bit better. Oh no. Oh, I'm getting real. Okay, this little eye here, excuse me. Toggling that on and off temporarily makes something invisible on your screen. So as I do that, you can see that my animation disappears. So let's say I want this point to this point without the animation. I go I, O, turn off the animation, export selected range. Let's just do test to the desktop. Should take very little time. Under a minute remaining. And I should now be able to see that whole section without the animation on top. Where did it go? Was this made just right now? I hope so. Yeah, there it is. So I can open that up, press play, and there you go. I got that piece of media, no animation on top, because all I did was just hide this track of media. So let's mark clear my in and out points. So hopefully that makes sense there. I know that got a little convoluted, but that's exactly what I wanted. Yes, Bob White, that makes me happy. All right, Steve's tech review. I have a Logitech 4K Brio webcam, and when I do the preview during record, it is lagging. Is this normal, or do I have a hardware issue? I got to tell you, any answer that I give you right now is going to be uninformed because I don't even know what that camera is. Never used it before. Can't tell you specifics about it. But if I open up configure recording here and I use my FaceTime HD camera and I start recording, and then I open up my preview window, show recording monitor, I don't seem to have any lag. So I couldn't tell you the answer to that. I think your name was Steve. Something that I'm not going to be able to answer on the show here. If you are consistently having issues with it, I do recommend opening up a support ticket because we can answer that question a little bit easier. To expand all tracks at once, shift up arrow. Are you kidding me? I didn't even know that. Let's try this. Shift up arrow. Maybe I have to have a certain track highlighted. Doesn't seem to be working for me. But it's possible that I have changed that unknowingly in the past. But yeah, Steve, the Logitech 4K Brio, I've never even heard of that. Hang on a second. Logitech 4K Brio. Oh, cool. It's just it's like a webcam, but it's 4K instead of just 1920 HD. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. Something you're gonna have to do a little bit. Click on tracks header arrow. Yeah, that's what I do too. I'm a little confused there. But let's move on to some of the next questions that I had set up here. Yeah, something happened with the Facebook stream, unfortunately. Where's my notes? Here we go. A question that we get often as well is audio settings. How do I adjust my audio settings? What are the best audio settings? Now, when it comes to ScreenFlow, this is not what I would consider a audio editing program. This is a video editing program that has audio editing capabilities, but this is not something like a Logic where you can go in and you can create like full audio. You have all these plugins that works. This has some basic audio editing for sure. And a lot of the times people want to understand, like, how do I add fades and fades out? You have two different ways to do that with audio tracks. Let's not save. And I don't have audio set up today, so we're not going to be able to hear it, but the concept here is goes for everybody. So let's open up a new document and let's add something that has some audio clip test. There's audio there. Perfect. We see the audio. If we want to add a fade out to the end of this clip, easy. Just add an ending transition like you would to a video. The audio here is going to fade out with that fade out transition. Same works for a fade in. Now, if you don't want to do that because it's your the audio fade that you want to happen is in the middle of the clip, you add an audio action, and at the end of this action, you drop the volume all the way down to 0. And as we step through this, if you look up here in the top right-hand corner, you'll see that that volume percentage starts to drop. And by the time we get to the end, it's at 0 because I've added a fade out, essentially. You can also see that in this audio clip, we have all the audio levels here on the left-hand side, and then none after. And that's because it's disappeared. Now I can come here and fade it back in by adding full volume at the end of my next one. And there you go. I have an audio clip that fades out and fades right back in. just like that. Easy peasy. When it comes to exporting audio, you're not going to get any basic audio controls from the automatic zone. You're going to have to go into manual and customize. And when you do, you can see down here the AAC audio. You can change the sample rate, 44.1 to 48. I got to tell you, I don't have any idea what this stuff does. I never touch it. There's never been a reason for me to adjust my audio. I just adjust it in post when I'm doing here, maybe boost the audio a little bit, maybe add an audio filter if I want. But here, the data rate, all this kind of stuff, I always keep it stereo. I never touch this stuff. I just leave it as is. One thing you can do is here in the audio tab, add an audio filter. And we have a ton of these. They're that built-in Apple audio filters, audio units. They are very complicated. I wouldn't necessarily recommend trying to learn all of them unless you're a real big audiophile. But one place that is really helpful, I think it's the dynamics processor. Nope, not this one. I apologize. Let's look at something else here. Was it? I'm sorry. Let's see. Maybe it was. Oh yeah, it is. All right, dynamics processor. Add that. It's the master gain. That's a good way of really boosting your audio and adjusting the audio levels. I like to use that sometimes. But in general, I never use these things because it's a little too complicated for the kind of stuff that I like to do. I like to record my audio with my Blue Yeti microphone or maybe sometimes my Audio Technica that I use. And then just adjust the volume in here. Maybe smooth the audio levels if I get a little bit too up and down with it. And then sometimes I remove background noise if there's a little bit too much going on in here. But in general, I'm not adjusting the very deep specifics of my audio. Oops, wrong button. Yeah, Eileen, I think that's your name there. We tried to be, something kind of fell apart with the Facebook stream. I'm not sure what's going on. Live streaming, as you know, sometimes is a little bit tricky when you're going to multiple places. I'm glad you found us over here on YouTube, though. We, of course, should probably get that back up by next time, no problem. But something happened. I'm not sure. We have our buddy Trevor, our Facebook Live and YouTube Live guru, is out sick today, so maybe something that he could have fixed that we missed. Chris Mattia, hello. I was thinking about you today. I need to, hey, everybody, Chris Mattia in there. He might hopefully be a guest on the show sometime in the future. He's a pro ScreenFlow user, I would say. But hopefully we can get him in here sometime. Let's see. I had a couple more things I wanted to go over. I asked Abdul from a support perspective, what is something that people ask all the time? And I'm not sure how many of you guys record PowerPoint presentations, but a lot of people say, hey, how do I do PowerPoint with ScreenFlow? And the answer is way simpler than you may expect. Pull up PowerPoint, make it full screen, and make a recording. There's no special trick to it. A lot of people think, why can't I open up my PowerPoint presentation in ScreenFlow? And the reason why is because PowerPoint is not a video file. You can't bring your PowerPoint presentation into ScreenFlow. What you need to do is record your PowerPoint presentation using ScreenFlow and then get a video of that. That was something that he wanted me to clarify because it gets people very confused. So hopefully that makes sense. If you're recording your ScreenFlow, if you're recording your PowerPoint presentation using ScreenFlow, make sure to record your screen with PowerPoint running, and then you can narrate over it or narrate later after you've gone through all of the slides. But don't try and open up your PowerPoint presentation in ScreenFlow. That's just never going to work. That's like putting oil in your gas tank. It's just going to be bad news. Actually, it's not as bad as that because it's not going to break your engine. It's not going to break ScreenFlow. It just won't work. And the last one that he wanted to bring up was, how do I combine ScreenFlow projects? Can I take one and move it into the other? And the answer is yes, but only if you understand what you're doing there. You can't open up a ScreenFlow project in another ScreenFlow project in the same way that you can't open up a PowerPoint project in a ScreenFlow project. PowerPoint files, ScreenFlow files are not video or media files that can be recognized in the timeline of ScreenFlow. But what you can do is just copy and paste it into a different ScreenFlow timeline. If you have a 2-minute video in project A and a 2-minute video in project B, and you want to edit them together, just copy and paste all of the files in project B, or just copy all the files in project B by highlighting all of them and doing Command C, and then go into the timeline of the second project and say Command V. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. Let's open up a animation number 1. Let's see what that is. Okay, so here's an animation that I made. And it just moves across, right? And let's open up another recent document, and let's say, here's my, I'm doing a recut of a video that I made. This is just kind of something for a different product of ours. Let's say I want to put that animation into this video. I just come over to the animation, Command A, grab all of the files that are in this, Command C, which is going to copy them, go back to my other project, and Command V. And now you can see I have this video here, which was the original project, the Aspera video recut, and then I have that animation that I created at the end of it. And now I can edit all of these files together. So don't try and open up a ScreenFlow file within another ScreenFlow document. Just copy and paste all that material into the file that you want to do everything in. So those were the questions that I frequently asked questions that I get a lot, the support team gets a lot. Of course, there's a million questions that people ask all the time, but those are ones that I tend to field frequently. So hopefully those were helpful for you guys. If you have more questions, go ahead and put them into the questions right here, and I will answer them. So. Oh, cool, JF. I don't know where I'm going to be able to see that, but please let me know how I can watch it, because I am having trouble with understanding what you were saying. Yes. That is also another way of doing it. So Chris has 2 good points right there. The first one, if any of you have ever done PowerPoint presentations, you'll know that in the more recent versions of PowerPoint, you have presenter mode, it's called. And it's it happens when you have 2 monitors using PowerPoint. One will show your PowerPoint presentation, and the other will show you presenter mode, which gives you a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, which is really helpful as a presenter, but sometimes tricky with ScreenFlow. So Chris wanted to say, if you've got those 2, disconnect the second monitor before you launch PowerPoint, because that way you can get around that presenter mode that you might accidentally record instead of the actual output. Another way to do it is to export your PowerPoint as a PNG files and then bring those in individually and record your voiceover and then line up and stretch them long enough. The only way that's not necessarily good is if you have animations built into PowerPoint, you won't get those as PNGs. So maybe you have to do that. And then Myra Kareen says, Lucas, what is my favorite new feature in ScreenFlow 7? Some of the features that I've been really big on lately are older features like nested clips. I love nested clips. But I would probably say this is a little bit boring, but coming from someone who edits all the time and wants as much control as they can get in ScreenFlow, 60 frames per second in the timeline is my new favorite feature in ScreenFlow. That's this little button down here. Screen Dimensions Timeline Frame Rate. We boosted it up from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second. That means every second is now divisible by 60 instead of 30, meaning you have twice as much control over the intricacies of movement in the timeline. And that for me is super powerful because I like to do a lot of animation building in ScreenFlow. And when you can break up each second into 60 pieces as opposed to just 30, it means you have twice as many places where you can place the beginning of a animation, or line up little tiny things, or line up your voiceovers to just be exactly as perfect as you want. And I know that's not the most exciting thing to say about ScreenFlow features, but for me, that gives me, and I've said this 8 or 9 times, but that gives me twice as much control over what I'm doing in the ScreenFlow timeline, and I absolutely love that. It makes me feel more powerful when I'm editing. Chris, custom keyboard shortcuts, those are really good too. If you do a lot of editing, using the trackpad, I still I promote this to people. Say, hey, learn those keyboard shortcuts so you don't use your trackpad as much, or your mouse and clicking and stuff. But it's hard for me to move into it. But customizing keyboard shortcuts to make your experience using ScreenFlow as powerful as possible is just wonderful. I agree, Chris. Myra Kareen. There's no reason, in my opinion, if other people have different opinions, that's totally acceptable, but there's no reason to ever edit in 30 frames per second ever again. You do have to be careful, though, because if you've done a lot of projects in the past in 30 frames per second, then you switch them to 60 frames per second, you can sometimes run into issues where you have twice as much material. So if you have a lot of projects in the past at 30, keep those in 30. But from now on, I would definitely switch to 60 frames per second because it gives you more control. Teresa Lett, can you show us your green screen setup? I would like to see the lights that you use. I can't do that right now, Teresa. But that is definitely something that we can go over in the next one. The reason why I can't do it is because our camera is fixed and I don't have... Yeah, Deborah Lee, do you have just one of those Logitech webcams that I can use real fast? Do you know where one is sitting? Guys, I'm going to stand up and do some weird stuff here because I might be able to find a camera. You see one anywhere? Sorry, everybody. We're looking for a camera I can plug into my computer to show you something. But I don't see one right now. I'm going to try my best to do something really, really goofy here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open up a photo booth on my Mac. Make this as big as I can. Woohoo! So now you see, maybe take me off of there as well, Deborah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually move my camera, my whole computer around to try and let you see what I'm working with. So here's me. This is the computer. This is going to be a little sketchy because I'm connected here, but this is the computer setup that I'm working with. You can see on the table I got my camera, all this stuff. So what we have is this giant green screen behind us in a big studio here. I've got like a 16 by 16 studio that I have, that we all get to use here. And behind me on the wall is a giant green velvet screen. And we have that up there, and you can see, I'm not sure if you can really see, but we can roll that up and get a different background. We have a nice green or a gray piece of paper where we do different kinds of shots. There's some pretty funny pictures on here. But then you can see in front of that, maybe about 4 or 5 feet in front of that, we have this giant metal truss that goes all the way across. And on that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 LED lights that are up all around, built into that metal truss. And that's how we do our green screen. And this is a funny picture. Hey, everybody. All right, so let's get rid of that. One of the reasons why it's hard to show people that is because I can't imagine that a lot of people are going to be able to set up something like that in their house. Now, if you have a giant studio and you got a lot of money and you can set up something like that, I highly recommend doing it because it's going to be really helpful. But building a giant lighting truss with 7 LED lights is not optimal for like your office and your home, which is where I would set up something like that if I wasn't working here at Telestream. But you don't need something as wild as this, like a basic lighting kit and green screen setup that you can find on Amazon. Like if we do this, so we go Amazon green screen kit. Like look at this, for $115. You can get this little kit. It comes with a couple lights and some reflectors, some soft boxes, a green screen that goes in the back, and some tripods to hold it all up. For, this is probably the cheapest one you can get. If you have the budget to go maybe twice as expensive, you can get some better quality stuff. But you can set this up in a smaller space and get a really good looking small area green screen key. This is 6x9, so 6 feet wide, and you light up the green screen, and then you light yourself in front of it as well. So that's what I would recommend doing. It's probably the best way to go about it. And with that, you guys, I think we're going to call it a day here on ScreenFlowLive FAQs. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for asking questions. Like always, we'll be back here in 2 weeks for another episode of ScreenFlow Live, and hopefully Chris will get you on here pretty soon, and we can delve deep into the mind of a non-ScreenFlow employee ScreenFlow user, which is always very helpful. So thanks everyone for coming. Hope to see you in a couple weeks. My name is Lucas, and I will see you guys all very soon. Bye-bye.